The doctor stood frozen. Nurses rushed. Monitors beeped erratically. Then, silence. Ethan's worst fear had just come true. His wife was slipping away, and their unborn child wasn't responding. And then, in the very moment when all hope was lost, something happened that no one could have predicted. Before we dive, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And while you're here, hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss a story that will leave you speechless. Now let's get into it. No one expects to face a choice like this. Life or death, mother or child. But for Ethan, a single night turned his dreams into a nightmare. His wife, Olivia, was just weeks away from giving birth when the unthinkable happened. What was supposed to be the happiest moment of their lives quickly spiraled into a life or death battle. And just when everything seemed lost, fate took an unexpected turn. A miracle. But miracles don't always come easy. Ethan Carter had always believed that life rewarded those who planned ahead. He wasn't the type to leave things to chance. Every major step he had taken, his career, his home, his marriage, had been carefully thought out, meticulously prepared. He didn't make impulsive decisions. He made well-informed choices. And now, as he stood on the precipice of fatherhood, he had never felt more ready. For 6 years, he and Olivia had built a life together, one filled with love, laughter, and dreams of the future. They had talked for hours about what kind of parents they wanted to be, about bedtime stories and lullabies, about tiny hands reaching for them in the middle of the night. Every moment of their journey together had led to this, the arrival of their son. The past few months had been a whirlwind of excitement. Ethan had thrown himself into preparing for their baby's arrival with the same level of dedication he applied to everything in life. They had spent countless weekends strolling through baby stores, comparing cribs, debating which stroller was the safest, and running their fingers over impossibly soft baby clothes, imagining the tiny body that would soon fill them. Ethan had taken it upon himself to assemble the nursery furniture. Despite Olivia's teasing that he should probably call for help, he had spent an entire Saturday battling the crib's confusing instruction manual, cursing under his breath as he struggled to match the wooden panels to the diagrams in front of him. But when it was finally finished and Olivia had run her hand over the smooth white railings with a smile, he knew it was worth it. The nursery was perfect. Soft blue walls, a rocking chair by the window, and shelves lined with stuffed animals that seemed to wait patiently for the baby's arrival. A delicate mobile of tiny stars dangled above the crib, ready to lull their son to sleep. Every detail had been considered, every preparation made. All that was left to do was wait for the big day. But the big day came much sooner than expected. It was a quiet evening, the kind that should have passed uneventfully. The living room was bathed in the soft glow of their table lamp. Olivia sat curled up on the couch, one hand resting gently on her swollen belly. Ethan sat beside her, rubbing slow circles on her back, listening to her talk about how the baby had been kicking nonstop that afternoon. Ethan smiled, pressing his palm against her stomach, hoping to feel it himself. "Maybe he knows we're talking about him," he joked. Olivia chuckled. "Or maybe he's just impatient to get out and meet us." Ethan laughed, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "Well, he's going to have to wait a few more weeks." But fate had other plans. Without warning, Olivia's body stiffened. Her smile vanished, replaced by a look of confusion, then pain. A sharp, sudden gasp escaped her lips. Ethan immediately tensed. "Olivia?" Her eyes widened as she clutched her stomach. And then, she collapsed. One moment she was standing beside the couch, laughing. The next, she was on the floor, doubled over, her face twisted in agony. Ethan's entire world tilted. Panic surged through his veins as he dropped to his knees beside her, his hands hovering, unsure where to touch, what to do. "Olivia, talk to me." She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her breathing was shallow, her face pale, and when she lifted her trembling fingers to reach for him, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A pool of blood spreading beneath her. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. His heart slammed against his ribs. This wasn't just pain. This was something much, much worse. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking so badly that it took him 3 tries to dial 911. The moment the operator answered, his voice cracked. "My wife is pregnant. She's bleeding. I don't know what's happening. Please send help." The next few minutes were a blur of terror. Olivia lay curled on the floor, gasping in pain, her fingers digging into Ethan's wrist as if anchoring herself to reality. He kept whispering to her, trying to keep her conscious, but his words felt empty, useless. Where were the paramedics? When the ambulance finally arrived, Ethan's relief was short-lived. The paramedics moved quickly, their voices clipped and urgent. They fired questions at Ethan. How far along was she? Had she experienced any complications before? Was the baby still moving? But his brain barely processed them. The sight of Olivia being lifted onto a stretcher, her body limp, her breathing faint, shattered something inside him. He climbed into the back of the ambulance, gripping her hand tightly as they sped toward the hospital. He whispered words of reassurance, words he desperately wanted to believe himself. "Hold on, Liv. Just hold on." But deep inside, fear gnawed at him. Something was terribly wrong. When they arrived at the hospital, everything moved too fast. The emergency room doors swung open, and Olivia was rushed inside before Ethan could fully process what was happening. Doctors and nurses swarmed around her, their voices blending into a blur of medical jargon. And then, just like that, she was gone. A nurse stopped Ethan before he could follow. "Sir, you need to wait here." "Wait, wait." He stared at her in disbelief, his hands shaking. He needed to be with Olivia. He needed to know she was okay. But before he could protest, the door swung shut. He was left standing alone in the middle of the brightly lit hallway, the world around him moving at full speed while his own heart stood still. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Ethan sat in the waiting room, elbows on his knees, fingers tangled in his hair. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. His mind raced through every terrible possibility. What if he lost them both? What if, before his thoughts could spiral further, the door swung open. Dr. Henry Lawson, the lead surgeon, stepped out. His face was unreadable, his posture too rigid. Ethan's stomach twisted into a painful knot. The doctor took a slow breath. "Ethan, listen carefully." Ethan swallowed hard. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Is Olivia okay? Is the baby—" Lawson hesitated, and that hesitation made Ethan's blood turn to ice. "Olivia has suffered a severe placental abruption." Ethan blinked. The words didn't make sense. "Abruption?" The doctor explained, his voice calm but heavy. "The placenta has detached from her uterus. The baby isn't getting oxygen, and Olivia is losing blood rapidly." Ethan felt like the ground had dropped out from beneath him. Not enough oxygen? Losing blood? His hands clenched into fists. Dr. Lawson continued, his voice steady but urgent. "We're doing everything we can, but if things don't improve, we may need to make a decision." Ethan's mouth went dry. "A decision?" The doctor hesitated before saying the words that would haunt Ethan forever. "If it comes down to it, we may have to choose between saving Olivia or the baby." The room tilted. No, this wasn't happening. Ethan's breath came in short, shallow gasps. His head shook violently. There has to be another way. Dr. Lawson's expression remained professional, but his silence said everything. Inside the operating room, Olivia was slipping away. The baby's heartbeat was fading. And outside, Ethan Carter stood frozen, about to face the most impossible choice of his life. Ethan felt as though the entire world had stopped spinning. Time stood still. Sound became muffled. The walls of the hospital seemed to blur and shift around him, warping under the weight of the impossible choice laid before him, a choice that should never exist. How could he be expected to choose between his wife, the woman he loved more than anything, and the tiny, fragile life they had created together? How could he decide who lived and who died? It was a cruel paradox, one that defied logic, fairness, and love. His breath came in sharp, uneven gasps as he pressed his trembling hands against his face, as if trying to shield himself from the unbearable reality crashing down upon him. Every fiber of his being screamed for a way out. There had to be another option, one where he didn't have to lose either of them. There had to be. But the cold, sterile walls of the hospital held no answers. They only seemed to close in tighter, suffocating him in the weight of the moment. Then, the double doors to the operating room swung open for a split second. A burst of harsh fluorescent light spilled into the dim hallway. Through the narrow opening, Ethan caught glimpses of the chaos inside. Nurses moving frantically, medical instruments clattering against steel trays, the rapid beeping of machines fluctuating wildly. His head jerked up. His heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay upright. He had to be strong. He had to believe Olivia could fight through this, that their baby could hold on just a little longer. But then, a piercing alarm shrieked from inside the operating room. Ethan's entire body went cold. A nurse rushed past him, pushing open the doors with force. Ethan's breath caught as he caught a glimpse inside. His wife, pale, lifeless, lying still on the operating table. The machines flashing warnings, A flurry of motion surrounded her, but she wasn't moving. "She's coding! We're losing her!" a nurse shouted. Ethan's knees buckled. "No, no, no, no!" The words ricocheted inside his skull. His entire body locked up, frozen in horror. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. Not Olivia. His legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the hard plastic chair in the waiting room. His fingers dug into the armrest so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He tried to breathe, but his chest felt like it was being crushed by an invisible force. His vision blurred as he tried to process the nightmare unfolding before him. Inside the operating room, the doctors moved frantically. Dr. Lawson's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Prepare for resuscitation. We don't have much time." Ethan's pulse pounded against his skull. His mind refused to accept what was happening. This was a nightmare. It had to be. He squeezed his eyes shut, begging himself to wake up, to open his eyes and find himself back home, with Olivia curled beside him on the couch, laughing as they picked out baby names, to go back to the moment before everything had fallen apart. But when he opened his eyes again, the cold, harsh reality remained. He could hear the rhythmic compressions of CPR, the rapid counting of nurses as they tried to restart Olivia's heart, the desperate urgency in Dr. Lawson's voice. But with every second that passed, hope slipped further and further away. And then, Dr. Lawson's voice cut through the chaos, slicing into Ethan's soul like a blade. "Ethan, we have to decide now. Baby or mother?" The words shattered him. His entire world collapsed around him. His mind screamed that this was a nightmare, that this wasn't real. But deep down, he knew it was. His heart pounded so violently that he thought it might burst. His throat tightened. His entire future, the love of his life and the child they had dreamed of, hung in the balance. Whatever name he spoke would determine who survived this night. How could he choose? His hands trembled violently as he clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. His mind was in chaos, memories flashing before his eyes. He saw Olivia, their first date, the way she had smiled at him like he was the only person in the world, the warmth of her touch, the sound of her laughter. He saw the day they found out they were having a baby, how they had held each other in a tearful embrace, whispering about the future, about the life they would build together. He saw her sitting on the floor of the nursery, surrounded by half-assembled furniture, laughing at how complicated the crib instructions were. And then he imagined their baby, the tiny heartbeat he had heard during their first ultrasound, the little kicks Olivia had let him feel, the dreams they had whispered late at night, imagining what their son would look like, what his first word might be, how it would feel to finally hold him in their arms. His voice broke. He needed more time, just one more moment. But before he could speak, before he could utter a single word, a nurse gasped, "Wait, the baby is moving!" Ethan's head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. Dr. Lawson rushed toward the monitors, scanning the readings. The baby's vitals, which had been dangerously low, were suddenly spiking. "It's impossible," the obstetrician murmured. "His heartbeat is strengthening." Ethan jumped to his feet, gripping the edge of the chair for support. His heart slammed against his ribs. A doctor turned to the team, urgency in his voice. "We're going for an emergency C-section. Now!" The team moved like lightning. Instruments clattered, orders were shouted, and within moments, they were working to deliver the baby. Ethan's legs felt like they might give out beneath him, but he refused to look away. Was this real? Had his prayers been answered? Seconds stretched into minutes. The room was a blur of movement, voices calling out medical terms he didn't understand. And then, a sharp cry pierced the air. A baby's cry. The sound crashed into Ethan like a tidal wave, breaking apart the walls of fear that had surrounded him. His breath caught in his throat. Tears spilled down his face. Dr. Lawson turned to the team, voice firm. "We got him. The baby's out." Ethan's knees nearly buckled. His son was alive. Noah was alive. But just as relief flooded his body, a chilling realization struck him like a hammer. Olivia. He turned toward the operating table. She still wasn't moving. Her chest didn't rise. The machines let out a long, steady beep. "No, no, no, no." A nurse pressed her fingers to Olivia's wrist, searching for a pulse. Another voice called out orders for more medication, more compressions. Ethan could barely hear them over the pounding of his heart. Dr. Lawson hovered over Olivia, his voice filled with urgency. "Come on, Olivia. Stay with us." Ethan's hands clenched into fists at his sides. His entire body shook. He wanted to scream, to beg, to trade his own life for hers. Another beep, then another, a pause, and then a sharp, deep inhale. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. A gasp, the room froze, nurses stood still. Doctors turned to look. Olivia gasped awake. Ethan collapsed to his knees, a sob tearing from his throat. He covered his mouth with his hands, his entire body shaking as disbelief and relief crashed over him. They had survived. Noah and Olivia had both fought their way back to him, and in that moment, Ethan knew. Some miracles are impossible to explain, but that didn't make them any less real. The delivery room had transformed into a battlefield, a war zone where life and death collided. The air was thick with tension, so suffocating it felt like it could crush the walls in on themselves. Every second stretched unbearably long, a slow, agonizing march toward an outcome no one could predict. The surgical lights cast a harsh, unforgiving glow over Olivia's still body, making her look pale, too pale. The steady hum of machines filled the space, their rhythmic beeping fluctuating wildly, warning of the danger at hand. The sharp scent of antiseptic and blood clung to the room, making it impossible to forget how fragile this moment was. Nurses moved with robotic precision, their hands swift and steady, their faces drawn with the kind of grim determination that came from having fought too many battles like this before. They had seen the worst, and they were seeing it again now. Ethan stood outside the operating room, frozen, helpless, powerless. His breath was shallow, his chest rising and falling in uneven, ragged gasps. His hands pressed against the glass window, his fingers splayed wide as if he could reach through, touch her, pull her back from the brink of whatever terrible fate awaited. Inside, his Olivia, his world, was slipping away. He wanted to run in, to do something, anything, but he couldn't. He could only watch as the life they had built together began to unravel right before his eyes. But then, the sound that shattered the suffocating silence wasn't the final, devastating beep of a flatline. It was a cry, a sharp, piercing wail tore through the room, cutting through the tension like a blade. A baby's cry. Ethan's entire body jerked at the sound. His breath hitched in his throat, his heart slamming so hard against his ribs it felt like it might break free. A cry. The baby was alive. Noah was alive. Dr. Lawson's exhausted but steady voice rang out over the chaos. "We got him! The baby's out!" Ethan's legs almost gave out beneath him. His vision swam, his pulse roaring in his ears. He gripped the edge of the waiting room chair with white-knuckled desperation, trying to ground himself in this new, surreal reality. His son had survived. A strangled, disbelieving sob escaped his lips as he pressed a trembling hand to his forehead. Relief flooded his veins like ice water, sending shivers through his entire body. But just as that first wave of relief began to settle in, it was stolen away in an instant. Something was wrong. Olivia wasn't breathing. The moment Noah was delivered, her body had gone still. A nurse's frantic voice rang out over the newborn's cries. "She's not responding!" Ethan's head snapped up. His heart lurched into his throat. No, this wasn't how it was supposed to go. This wasn't the story they were meant to have. He was supposed to be holding Olivia's hand, kissing her damp forehead, telling her she did it. They were supposed to be crying together, overwhelmed with rain as they looked at their son for the first time. Not this, not this. Then came the words that shattered his soul. "We're losing her!" Dr. Lawson ripped off his surgical gloves, his movements sharp and precise. There was no hesitation now, just desperation. The nurses scrambled into action, their movements frantic, urgent. The energy in the room had shifted. This was no longer a delivery. This was a fight for survival. The monitors screamed. The machines blared a single continuous tone, a flatline. The world tilted. Ethan couldn't breathe. His chest caved in as if something was physically crushing him. No, his son had survived, but Olivia, his wife, the love of his life, the woman he had built a future with, she was gone. No. The word burst through him like wildfire, burning through his veins, igniting a primal kind of desperation he had never known before. His body moved on its own. He staggered forward, his palms slamming against the glass as a raw, broken scream tore from his throat. "Olivia, no, please." His voice was hoarse, cracking under the sheer force of his grief. She was just here. Just yesterday, she had been laughing with him about baby names, teasing him about how nervous he was. Just hours ago, she had held his hand, her eyes full of love, whispering how excited she was to finally meet their son. And now she was nothing but a body on a table. Inside, the doctors and nurses worked frantically. Chest compressions, epinephrine, a defibrillator. Ethan barely heard them over the deafening roar in his ears. His world was ending. The dreams they had, the life they had planned, gone. His knees buckled beneath him. He clenched his fists so tightly his nails dug into his palms. He couldn't lose her. He couldn't. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Come on, Olivia." Lawson muttered under his breath, pressing down on Olivia's chest with steady, controlled force. "Stay with us." One shock. No response. Two shocks. Nothing. Ethan felt himself breaking. "Please," he choked out, his voice barely more than a whisper. Dr. Lawson grit his teeth. "Again. Clear." Another shock. Silence, then a blip, a single beep, then another. The entire room froze. The nurse holding Olivia's wrist gasped. "I have a pulse." Ethan's entire world jolted to a stop. Another beep, another, and then a deep, sharp inhale. Olivia's body lurched, her chest rising violently as she sucked in air like a drowning woman breaking the surface of the ocean. Her eyes flew open. A collective gasp rippled through the room. A nurse let out a choked sob. Dr. Lawson's face went slack with disbelief. Ethan's vision swam with tears. She was alive. She was alive. She blinked slowly, dazed, her lips parting as if trying to speak. Her breath came in weak, shallow gasps. "Olivia?" Ethan's voice cracked, his entire body trembling. She turned her head slightly, her hazy eyes searching the room. Then, her gaze landed on the tiny bundled baby in the nurse's arms, her son. A single tear slipped down her cheek. A fragile, weak smile tugged at her lips. Ethan couldn't hold it in anymore. His knees gave out. He dropped to the ground, his hands covering his face as sobs racked his body. She was alive. Noah was alive. They had survived. Dr. Lawson let out a long, tired breath and stepped back, running a hand down his face. "She shouldn't have made it," he muttered. "But she did." Ethan didn't need science to explain it. He didn't need medical reports or rational explanations. He knew what it was, a miracle. Some things defy logic. Some moments rewrite fate. And sometimes, when you least expect it, life gives you another chance. Hours had passed, yet time itself felt different, slower, quieter, heavier. The once chaotic energy of the operating room had faded into something softer, more delicate. The urgency was gone. The rapid, desperate voices of doctors and nurses had been replaced by a gentle hum of medical monitors, their rhythmic beeping steady and calm. The sterile, sharp scent of antiseptics still lingered in the air, but it no longer carried the weight of fear. Instead, something else mingled with it now, something warmer, something lighter. Hope. Ethan sat beside Olivia's hospital bed, his back hunched slightly, exhaustion weighing down his shoulders. But in his arms, he held the most fragile yet most powerful thing in the world, his newborn son, Noah. The tiny body pressed against Ethan's chest was warm, delicate, and impossibly small. So small. Yet despite his size, Noah's presence was overwhelming, a force that made Ethan's heart ache in ways he had never known before. He had never known love could feel like this. It was all-consuming, terrifying, and so utterly profound that it made his breath catch in his throat. The weight of Noah's tiny body against his chest sent ripples of emotion crashing through him, each one more powerful than the last. His gaze lifted from the sleeping infant to Olivia. She looked impossibly small. The hospital bed seemed too big for her fragile frame. Her skin, still pale from the trauma she had endured, had a ghostly softness to it. The IV taped to her arm, the wires attached to her body, the quiet hiss of oxygen, they were all reminders of how close he had come to losing her. But then he saw the slow, steady rise and fall of her chest. She was alive. Ethan swallowed hard, his vision blurring. He had barely stopped crying since the moment he realized she had survived. She was here. Noah was here. Against all odds, they had both made it. A tiny sound pulled his attention downward. Noah let out a soft sigh, his tiny fingers twitching, curling instinctively around Ethan's thumb. Ethan's breath hitched. A shiver ran through him. This little hand, so impossibly small, had nearly never been able to grasp his. The thought sent a sharp pang through his chest. He had come so close to losing everything, closer than anyone should ever have to come. His arms instinctively tightened around Noah, holding him just a little closer, as if somehow that could protect them from the nightmare they had barely survived. Then, Olivia stirred. Ethan's head snapped up. Her eyelashes fluttered against her cheeks. A soft, almost inaudible groan escaped her lips. Her fingers twitched against the white sheets, and then, ever so slowly, her eyes opened. For a moment she looked dazed, as if caught between two worlds, the nightmare she had nearly succumbed to and the reality she had fought her way back into. Then her gaze settled on him, on them. Her breath hitched. A weak ghost of a smile touched her lips. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, fragile as glass. Ethan exhaled, a shaky, uneven breath. Relief flooded his body all over again. He nodded, unable to speak for a moment. His throat felt too tight, too raw. Carefully he shifted, leaning closer so she could see. "Meet Noah," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. A tear slipped down Olivia's cheek. Her trembling fingers reached out, hesitating. Ethan gently guided her hand, his fingers steadying hers as she touched their son for the first time. Her fingertips barely brushed the soft fabric of the baby blanket before a quiet sob escaped her lips. "He's here," she whispered, her voice raw. "He's really here." Ethan swallowed against the knot in his throat. "You both are." Her gaze lifted to meet his, her eyes swimming with unshed tears. No words were needed, because in that moment they both understood. They had beaten the impossible. They had stared death in the face and come out the other side, scarred, shaken, but still standing. Ethan had always believed himself to be a strong man, but this was strength. Strength was Olivia fighting her way back when everything told her she wouldn't. Strength was Noah, surviving against the odds. Strength was love refusing to let go. Noah stirred in Ethan's arms, making a soft sound, as if sensing the love that surrounded him. A quiet, watery laugh escaped Olivia's lips. Her fingers curled weakly around Ethan's wrist, holding on to him, anchoring herself to this moment. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "We'll name him Noah." Ethan blinked, the name. He had forgotten about it in the chaos of the night. They had spent hours debating it before, laughing about how they had such different taste in names. But when they had finally chosen Noah, it had just felt right. And now, hearing it from Olivia's lips, in this moment, after everything, it felt more right than ever. Ethan let out a small, breathless laugh. He looked down at his son, at the tiny miracle they had been given. He let the name roll off his tongue, testing it in a way that felt different now. "Noah," he exhaled, pressing a gentle kiss to his son's forehead. "Because we survived the storm." Olivia nodded, fresh tears slipping down her face. "We did." Ethan leaned forward, pressing his lips softly against her forehead, his touch lingering as if savoring the moment. Because he was. They had come so close to losing everything. And yet, here they were. Noah let out another soft coo, his tiny face scrunching up before settling again in peaceful sleep. Ethan took a deep breath, letting it fill his lungs, letting it settle into every aching part of him. The nightmare had ended. They had faced the unimaginable. They had been pushed to the very edge of life itself, and somehow, life had given them another chance. Because sometimes, in the darkest of moments, when hope seems lost and the world feels cruel, miracles happen. And when they do, they remind us that even in the fiercest storm, love will always find a way to pull us through. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes in our darkest moments, miracles happen when we least expect them. This story is a reminder that love, resilience, and hope can pull us through even the fiercest storms. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, real-life stories that touch the heart. See you in the next one.